Good mornings, Titans Nation. Welcome back into the Morning Glory Show. I hope you guys are all having a great day. I hope you're shit showered, shaved. I hope you got your mayo in your cup because it's time to tighten up. We got a great show for you guys today. OTAs have kicked off. We're going to talk about that. There's some Will Levis media discourse going on. So we're going to set the record straight with that. And then we're going to end today's show as we always do with the draft. And we're drafting the best barbecue. So we're going to do a main course, couple sides, best beverage to end the show. But as always, I'm joined by my wonderful, wonderful guest and co-host, Jonathan Miller at Esports Valent and B-Will at B-Will TF How are we doing today, boys?
Good, man. Doing great.
Man, we got a fun topic today, so we're going to unpack that. It's going to be a good time.
Jonathan's been fighting a good fight on TikTok, man. Somebody's got to do it.
Man, it's going to be fun to unpack the quarterback discussion in the AFC South. It'll be fun.
And we need all the reinforcements we can get. If you guys aren't following, go to All Things Titans on TikTok. Hit that follow button. Join the good fight and help us fight back this nasty, nasty Colts as we always do. Fuck the Colts, as always, FTC. But we'll go ahead. We're going to get into that later in the show. We're going to talk about some OTAs and just what really stood out to us thus far. We've had a couple days. We are kicking off another practice today. I think we end it next week on Tuesday and Wednesday, if I recall. A couple players missing out there. Devondre Sweat wasn't out there. The right tackle situation. I'm not sure who's going to play right tackle if MPF and Duncan aren't out there on the field.
No, you know who's going to play right tackle.
No, come on, bro.
You know who's going to play right tackle, Jake.
We're going to get into it because we were talking in the group chat earlier this week, and there is no doubt that Dylan Radins is looking large and in charge. And, I mean, I'll let you take it over, B-Will. What do we see in Radins?
Man, I see a lot of hard work and sweat and grit. You know, this guy looks yoked. I thought he was – standing next to Ronnie Coleman or something, the way he was looking, man. The dude looks good. Pause. But, he looked good at the tail end of last season, and his work ethic has never been questioned, unlike some of our other, young players. So, this guy's had the work ethic. He came back early from an ACL injury. I think he came back in 6-7 months from the ACL injury last year. So, work ethic's unquestioned. It's just been about the product on the field, and we got a coach that's going to get the best product out of him on the field. So I can't wait to see it. I'm really high on him. I think if we can get him and to be as our right tackle, we save tens of millions of dollars not having to get a guy in free agency or having to grab somebody in next year's draft early. So it's a big deal if Radins becomes a starting right tackle for this football team.
I think he looks chunkier, man. He put on some weight in a good way. But does that not mean that maybe he's the right guard? Like maybe he's pushing Brunskill for that position. And then, I don't know, to me, I'm really up and down on Radins. Like 1 second, I'm really high on him because of the way he plays. Like I felt like he played against TJ Watt really well at right tackle last year. He had some very, very good reps against him. So, and then there's other moments where it's like, but in that same game, he gave up a sack and 5 pressures. So it's like, 1 second I'm really high on him. The next second, it's like, oh, this looked really rough. Now, in his defense, though, the number one thing I will say is that he's been moved around everywhere. He's played every position but center for the Titans in the past 3 seasons or the past 2 seasons, I guess. And it's just hasn't been good for him. So I'm excited that there's enough talent on the roster now that this should mean that he should be able to hone in on one position. He should be able to either play guard or tackle and be on one side without worrying about it. Now, this typically, like based off of our last 2 first-round picks, that's going to be on the right side. So there are some positives to the talent that's been added around him, and I do think he's a very good player. I think he just needs some continuity. Like he needs some stability so that way he can continue to improve, because it's really unfair to ask a guy to just move around his entire career early on and then say, you haven't really earned a contract from us, because that's like, well, what do you mean? I did everything you guys wanted me to do. And every like presser he's done, every interview that he's done, he's basically like not complained, but also a little complained about his situation where it's like, yeah, I mean, I've played every position. Like, it is nice when you can kind of just sit and learn in one spot. So he's like, hey guys, can you please like just put me at one spot? So we'll see. I'm excited to see his development through camp.
I mean, he comes in, plays left tackle. He's a second-round pick, let's be honest. So, this guy's gotten a lot of criticism for a guy that was a second-round pick, one that's been moved around a lot, and a guy that's came back early from an ACL injury. I think the criticism a little bit unfair. I think it's a byproduct of how bad the offense line as a whole has been. But it's some guys you got to look at in isolation, and Radins is one of those guys that you have to look at in isolation and just look at what he's done last year, especially over the last couple games. He was the bright spot in the dark room, for lack of better words.
Yeah, I think he's going to make a great backup behind Daniel Brunskill. And I could see him pushing for the right guard spot, and I think the coaching staff has actually come out and said that they view him as a guard. I think that's where he's going to be the most successful. If he can clear up the penalties, that's my biggest knock from him. I think he had like 5 false starts and not many starts last season. I don't question the work ethic, like you said, coming back early from the ACL last season. And we see that with the ACL injuries. It takes time to come back. Just like Harold Landry, he was heating up down the stretch. So Dylan Radins coming in healthy this season, fully healthy, with a Brian Callahan, with a big coach. I think he can really start to put things together, and it might not be too late for him. But regardless, I think he's still, if he doesn't start, he's still a great swing tackle, in my opinion. But if we're looking at who's out there at right tackle today, I would be willing to bet it's probably like a Leroy Watson with those other 2 out that we mentioned earlier. But talking tackles.
I'm trying to understand why everybody's so much higher on MPF than – I mean, we saw him last year. What's the expectation for him from y'all? I don't have much of any from MPF. I saw him how bad he was last year, and I know he came back from the gambling thing, but to me, he had ample time. It's not like he was coming off an injury. He had ample time to be ready when he came out there, and he shit the bed.
Well, who was going to get him ready? Jason Hotailing? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the thing is, where I'm at with MPF is that I think what we saw from him his rookie season was promising enough for him to be like, okay, he could be the guy at right tackle, right? And then he comes out, he doesn't get a chance to start off of the momentum that he had his rookie season. He gets hit on the gambling stuff, and then he has, a pedestrian, start to his, well, I say start, but week 7 or whatever it was when he came back. And then he gets hurt in November. So it's like the whole season was a scratch. It felt like the entire offensive line was crumbling. I mean, even Skoronski struggled at times, at many times, I should say. So the entire offensive line was a complete disaster. So it's hard for me there. I think, to me, what I was hoping for was a Chris Hubbard and NPF battle in camp to see, because I thought that Hubbard had a chance to win that job again, and he was really good. Obviously, he's in San Fran now. He signed a 1-year deal there. But Jalen Duncan looked pretty good at times too. So I think we have a lot of question marks on the offensive line that we can't possibly answer those questions yet until we see more work in camp and that type of thing. I do personally think that it's most likely going to be a Jalen Duncan versus NPF right tackle type of situation. And then we'll probably have Radins and Brunskill battling for the right guard spot. And, I think that's an okay position for us to be in, because right now, there's a lot of uncertainty, but I think there's enough leftover talent on the roster, enough young talent that they can piece together this right side in a way that makes sense. And I do think NPF, this is going to be a make or break year for him, right? I think this is, I want to say this is his last year before he would have to go into his contract year, because was last year his second or third year? I can't remember.
I was thinking last year was his third. Was it second?
See, I'm in the same spot. I'm not sure. So either way, he's going into a contract situation where he either will have one last year on his deal, or he's going to be on an expiring contract after the season. So either way, they're going to have to make a decision on him. They'll also have to actually, you know what? I think this is year 3 for NPF and going into year 4 for Radins. I think that's what it is.
Correct.
You got to pick up the option on Radins.
You're going to have to pick it. Well, no, you won't have an option on Radins. It's just 4 years.
Or second round pick.
So they have decisions to make on the right side. So for NPF or for Dylan Radins, this is a good situation for the Titans, because both of those players have not lived up to their picks in the second and third round. And if they do have a good year and they do develop under under Callahan, then there's a good chance that the Titans can get them for a discount and, continue that progress going into next season. So there's a lot of positives to a struggling line players that you can develop that haven't proven themselves. Because, if Radens was the guy, or if MPF was the guy and he didn't miss any time or play poorly, then you're breaking off a big bag on your offensive line that really disrupts the cap after what you just did. That's not the case for the Titans. So that's some positive news.
No, my question is, or go ahead, Jake.
I was just going to say, just think, both of those players, Radens and MPF, their two offensive line coaches have been Jason Hotel and Keith Carter for their entire career. Mike Vrabel has set them up for failure from day one. So now if we're in the injury stuff, that's the biggest thing for me. I see the talent in MPF and Duncan, in both of them. I'm not writing off Jalen Duncan by any means.
I like him a lot.
I do too. And I liked what I saw last season. They throw him out at left tackle there in spurts, and that's where it kind of got a little haywire. But at right tackle, I really liked what I saw. I really liked it. So I'm not going to mind seeing him out there on day one, especially with the big coach being his head or his position.
I mean, he's really athletic, and he was really highly. I mean, he was taken late in the draft, but he was one of those guys that's looked at as a steal late in the draft.
Yeah,
he's all the potential in the world.
Round grades on
he was a second round.
Exactly.
Yep.
So him, but my question also is, how much of an eye would y'all like the Titans to have towards the future? To me, what's the point of having a Brunskill there if he's just close enough and barely edges a guy like Radens when he's at the end of his career? What value are we going to get for that next year or the year after? Like, if Radens performs well, we have value and we can re-sign him. Brunskill performs well, it's like, thank you. See ya. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it really comes down to the Will Levis side of things. You want his trajectory to be protected. If Radens isn't the guy, I'd rather have a slightly improved Brunskill at right guard. And I don't mind Daniel Brunskill. He is a guy. He's a Jag.
He's guy.
Just another guy. But
he's been a backup interior lineman his whole career. So we put too much. The expectation for him is backup interior lineman. That's what he's been his whole career. It's not going to change when he gets to Tennessee.
And Stoney in the comments, he brings up a great point. Shadiq Charles has some experience at right tackle too. I really view Shadiq as another option there at right guard. I think it's going to be him, Brunskill, and Radens competing for that right guard position. Obviously, the other two aren't healthy at right tackle. Maybe he's going to be pushing there. But I think Big Coach really likes Leroy Watson. I think that's why they traded for him. And being that transitional from tight end, he's still adding strength and stuff like that. But we'll see what we got in.
We've got three guys that we would classify as swing tackles. That's not good.
Exactly. That's what my next point was going to be. This is you may not have a good starter, and you're just trying to see who can come in this season and progress and actually become something, hopefully. But obviously, we're probably going to be looking at the spot next season as well as a potential replacement, even in the draft or in free agency. Just again, this is just a rotational door, more than likely.
Should we look at free agency next year already?
I'm not going to lie that I already have. But, I mean, we're talking tackles, so we got to bring him up. J.C. Latham, first-round pick, 7th overall. We're going to pair him next to Peter Skoronski, of course. And Latham, I'm falling in love with the kid. Obviously, Brian's been doing the media rounds. He was on the Athletic Show last week. He was on Bussin' with the Boys earlier this week. He's talking about him staying late after day one, struggling on Bertha/Olga, and staying late and really putting that together. Coming in day two, moving it efficiently. And then OTA day one, moving that sled like it's nothing, 15 yards downfield. If he stays on this, I mean, this kid's going to be a freaking all-pro by week 2 of the preseason if he stays on this trajectory. Obviously, that's not the case. And I thought it was pretty interesting hearing Coach Cowley talk about it was either Joe Alt or J.C. Latham. And when you say something like that, that tells me Joe Alt was their OT1 and Latham was OT2. Or it would have just been he was our guy from the get-go. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Does anything stand out to you guys as far as J.C. Latham thus far in his early career?
It's the size and athleticism for me. This guy's a monster. So I have my expectations tampered a little bit because at the end of the day, he's a rookie left tackle, and that's not always going to be as high as expectations as some other people have. He'll definitely be a big improvement over what we have, and it's going to be good looking forward with him. And that left side, along with Cushenberry at center, is going to be a lot better than it was last year. But he's going to be a rookie left tackle at the end of the day. So people have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, there's going to be some growing pains for sure, but I'm with you. The athleticism is clearly there, like the size. I really like his technique. He seems to be, he's a mauler, an absolute mauler. And so I'm excited about the run game. I'm excited about, what kind of options we have there. Because again, like not just in pass protection, like this offensive line in previous years didn't just struggle in pass protection. Like it was really rough in the run game too. And thankfully we had a guy, Derrick Henry, who would hit, have contact and then get 2 or 3 yards after contact. Honestly, Tajay was kind of a breath of fresh air too during that process because he was just so explosive that he would get up the field pretty quickly before those holes would deteriorate or fill. But yeah, I love JC. I think his intangible traits are amazing, and I think that's a big reason why they took him at 7. Was for that reason, and clearly he has it between the ears as well. Like he's a really intelligent player. Just kind of getting some of this bonus content that we've got from him and hearing him talk a little bit about the specifics of ball, like he knows ball, and that's really important. So he also seems like he's kind of stepping into a leader role a little bit too. Like he understands that the offensive line needs that, and that's really great to see as well. So yeah, I'm incredibly optimistic about that pick and feeling pretty good about the rookie class as a whole, honestly.
I'm so glad we've got a left tackle that's going to step into a leadership role like that has a mean streak about him. We've got to have some juice in that O-line room. It's just, for me, it reminds me, but I always look at the 49ers and how Trent Williams is the heartbeat of that team. And, that team goes emotionally as far as he and Debo take them. There's a reason why they're not – they can say they're shopping Debo all they want, but he's a leader in that locker room. Same thing with Trent Williams, a bona fide leader in that locker room. So, we needed that as a left tackle. Your leader on your offensive side of the ball is, for me, I'd much rather be that 6'7", 6'8" left tackle than the 5'10" diva receiver. We see how that works in Philly. But, we got to – that's going to be really good to see. We're going to see Latham at the coin toss before the games with the tunnel. That's what I'd rather see. Quarterback and a big-ass left tackle leading that team out there. It's old school.
No, he's going to be first off the bus. We already know that. Him and Sweat, first 2.
Yep.
And I think it was pretty interesting hearing Coach Cowley talk about Big Coach is going to be running the run coordinating. He's going to be that. Yeah, so that'll be super interesting to see how that plays out. Yeah, overall, I think the biggest benefactor of that is going to be Peter Skoronski right next to him. Getting Big Kush on the other side, it's just going to make it that much easier for him. Skoronski just coming off his rookie year, he's going to be able to help guide Latham along with that. And run left every play. I don't give a damn. We're worried about this right side, and we know last season the Titans gave up 21 sacks to the left tackle position. It's going to be some growing pains as there are with all rookie left tackles. But if we can get that 6-7. Will Levis is going to have that much more time in the pocket. I think that's going to be the biggest thing going into this season is how fast can Latham get up to speed.
Yep. We've got a couple nuggets scheme-wise from either the press conferences with the players or Callie himself with, of course, saying that Bill Callahan's going to be the run game coordinator. To me, that leads me to believe that we're going to have a more multiple run game. It's not going to be pigeonholed to where it's straight zone or straight gap. It's going to be a little multiple. And then Boyd also said that, the playbook is really, really, really similar to the one in Cincinnati. So that's a lot more information than we would have gotten years past.
He talked a little bit too much, and you could tell Callahan in his presser after that was like, yeah, I know Tyler is like, it's very similar, but there are very different things. And Tyler Boyd's like, nope, it's pretty much the same for me. Yep, exact same scheme, routes, everything. So it's like, oh, okay, all right, bro, chill. But obviously we assumed that, right? Like you can assume that offense was going to look very similar to Cincinnati's. But, that's kind of like a good transition point, I think, too, for a group that all of us have probably been pretty anxious to see improve, and that's the wide receivers. The first thing that jumps off to me, guys, so far what we've seen in OTAs is Calvin Ridley's got that juice, boy. coming out of that, man, he stomps. He has
those
that
high
Julio,
knees, boy.
those Julio high knees, but man, he is explosive, like very, very different from what we've seen in that wide receiver room. And I know that, it's just routes and he's just running freely, but, obviously L'Jarius Sneed spoke really, glowingly of him in terms of out of all the guys he's had to cover, he was one of the best in terms of getting open, creating separation. And that's something that we desperately need. So I think a good question is, are we under serving or are we underlooking how impactful Calvin Ridley might be in this offense?
Well, they're running routes on air. So they had the same expectations for Calvin last year in Jacksonville when they seen the practice clip. So let's wait till we get to the first week or two of the season. I mean, the receiver room is going to be a lot better. That's undoubtedly, it's going to be a lot better. So I'm not as high on the receiver room as others, just because I think we have some holes in the receiver room, yak wise, that probably will hinder us a little bit. We don't have a guy that if we're 3rd and 7 that we can give the ball or throw the ball to outside of Pollard and Spears that's going to pick up those 5 yards to get the first down. That's where I really see a deficiency in the wide receiver room. It's not about the over-the-top explosiveness, I guess, or the route running and ability to try and get open and find holes in the zone. That's there. But it's the off the cuff stuff that I think we're gonna struggle with. So, but I mean, it all depends.
I think it's going to be pretty scheme dependent too. It's getting those people into the right spots. And I mean, even going into DeAndre last season, that spin move in the open field, I think he's still got some yak ability. Tyler Boyd can definitely break a tackle, just looking at last season. And I think that's where Chig's really going to fill a big role as well. Getting him close to the line of scrimmage. You don't want him running deep routes down the field. Down that seam stretcher, I think, is going to be more Josh Wiley this season. But scheming up these early, easy targets for Chigakonkwo, I think that's going to be really important. And I think he could be utilized in kind of that Kyle Juszczyk-esque role for this team. And I'm super excited to see what this tight end room can do, just because we see the clips of Josh Wiley from this past week, and I'm liking what I'm seeing. So I think there could be some success there. And then, of course, Treylon Burks. He's going to be – we haven't seen it yet, but if he can do what he did at Arkansas, and Brian talking about him this week, he's just giving him glowing review after glowing review. So they're going to find a way to get him on the field. So I'm not super worried about the yak yardage and all that stuff, but I do see where the age could become concerning down the stretch for sure, Stu.
I just fear that we're going to have to be too perfect offensively, scheme-wise, to make things happen, just because we don't have anybody that's going to, off the cuff, make something happen outside of Spears and Pollard. You know what I mean? Just get the ball, make 2 guys miss, and get 10.
I think there's going to be a lot of room for, this is going to be a significantly more efficient offense than we've seen in the past. So the difference is run on first down, get stuffed, run on second down, get 2 or 3 yards, and then be forced into a 3rd and long, 3rd and medium, right? And then you have to throw the ball. So, scheme-wise, efficiently, from an efficiency standpoint, it was just incredibly hard. They put themselves in difficult down and distances. This offense under Brian Callahan is more efficient. Get those small chunk yards, get those quick throws, those quick 3-step drops, ball out of your hands type of thing. You're not letting the defensive line affect the pocket too severely, and you have guys who can get open quickly, these short intermediate routes. And then you're putting yourselves in 3rd and short situations where the playbook is far wide open. So you just have to look at the offense from an efficiency standpoint. So you don't necessarily need a guy okay, it's 3rd and 9. We need somebody to get open and fight for yards here. So I think that because of this different scheme offense and because of this quick style, ball out of your hands type of, get the ball to your playmakers, I think there's a better chance that the Titans are going to be less reliant on a guy that needs to fight for extra yards and fight for that first down versus, looking at more 3rd and short situations, or potentially not even a 3rd down at all. Maybe your offense is humming and you're getting to that point. So I think as Titans fans, obviously that's a fair concern because that's just been our reality for so long. But I think the efficiency on offense is going to be far different. I think Will Levis is going to be flirting with 70+% completion rates. I think he's going to be in the high 60s to 70. And that's going to be a drastic difference from what we're used to. Yeah,
he should be. I mean, but the thing is, this game ain't played X's and O's, and Callie will say that himself. If you look at Peyton Manning in his years, with this is going to be a similar style offense where it's quarterback driven. With his years, especially in Denver, he had a guy that was going to break tackles and really be a beast after the catch. Rest in peace, Demaryius Thomas. I mean, that's when he really had a really, really, really good year. We talk about all these short passes that we're going to have. We're going to dump off. I think it was almost 60% of the Bengals' throws were into the flats and in the intermediate outside, within 3 yards. We've got to have a guy that's going to make somebody miss right there. There's going to be a guy there. If we just catch it and do a spin move and then just fall for 3, that's cool and all, but we need 5. We need 6. It's going to be a problem. I know it's going to be a problem. It's just I'm saying it now, and we'll see. I'm just saying it's going to be a problem.
I don't think it's going to look like Joe Burrow and Cincy. I think it's going to look more like the Jake Browning. They're going to get him on the move, Will Levis on the move, and be able to find those. And really, who is Cincy's yard after the catch guy? Joe Mixon? Not anymore.
Higgins, I'd say. I mean, Higgins is going to – he's better yards after catching anybody we got. I mean, he almost killed a guy.
I don't know about that.
He almost killed a guy. He did kill a guy.
That's true.
What are you talking about? He
That's
killed
true.
him. He caught a body
He's
right
the only
there in
one
the
in the
middle
NFL that can say that.
at the 50-yard line at Orchard Park. Talk about make somebody miss. He sent somebody to the ether.
That's a good point.
I think Jaquan Jackson can be utilized in some similar-esque role like that too. I mean, he's not going to be T. Higgins. Let's say that. I expect him to have 150 to 250. He can be Sky Moore in his rookie season with Kansas City Chiefs. That's what I see like that. But I think with getting this team on the move, they're gonna be perfectly fine on offense. I think it's gonna be perfectly fine, and it might be similar to what Callahan had with Stafford there in Detroit. I could see something similar like that. But
I don't think we'll be bad. I'm just saying it's going to be an issue, and that's going to be our Achilles heel offensively. I think I'm more worried about that than I am the offensive line. Just our ability to create off the cuff, because things are not gonna fall in line each play or even each series. You need guys. That's what we pay. That's what skill players get paid so much for. What do you think AJ Brown gets paid so much for? What do you think Debo got paid so much for? What do you think McCaffrey got paid so much for? These guys create off the cuff when things fall apart, because it's football. Things fall apart all the time. We don't have anybody that's going to create when things fall apart besides Spears and Pollard.
I think Calvin Ridley is the separation. I mean, just looking at his advanced analytics as one of the best separators in football. The difference was Trevor Lawrence overthrew the shit out of him all the time. Like, it happened a lot. There was a big one against the Titans that would have won them the game in week 18, right? And they just and Trevor just shanked it. So I think that if Will Levis can play with the anticipation, and where I'm worried, where I'm worried is that Calvin Ridley is so explosive and such a good route runner and so efficient that I'm worried that the timing is going to be so drastically different from like D-Hop and Tyler Boyd versus Calvin Ridley, and that there's going to be some rhythm issues within the offense because of that. And that could potentially, I know it sounds silly in a way, because you're almost saying, oh, Calvin's too good, that it makes him a difficult weapon. I think that's possible. Like that could really throw off the rhythm, and that could have been the case for Trevor. But yeah,
that's what this time is for.
Exactly. But I think Calvin, he's explosive enough and good enough of a separator that he creates opportunity in different ways where he's going to get open and stretch the offense. So you have those like short intermediate, like utilizing the flat, you're stretching the field wide. And then you have a guy like Calvin Ridley who can separate and open up the field and give you those opportunities. So, like you said, we'll see. There's a lot of unknowns within this offense right now, but I think that there's enough talent that we're going to be in a much different position than we have been. And who knows? Like you said, maybe these minor problems are just good problems to have, and there's certainly going to be there. There's going to be some growing pains, but we'll see who emerges. I think Tajay Spears is probably going to be a bigger part of this offense than what a lot of people think he's going to be. He's looked so explosive, and I think that he's going to be a difference maker for the offense right along with Calvin.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good. And I don't think this offense is going to have to be as hyper efficient as it would have had to been in the past because of this defense. this defense is going to be much improved. The secondary is going to be amazing, in my opinion. Looking at Chijobe, this first looks at him, I think we got 2 CB1s out there. I have getting Denard Wilson in there, who's actually not at the practice field as of right now, just because he's doing the little program he's got. Exactly. Really liked what I saw out of him. And maybe my biggest surprise out of this week was Rashad Weaver. Looks slim, looks fast. I am not a Rashad Weaver truther by any means, but I liked what I saw.
Hey, man. He's looking good. That's all. When opportunity knocks at your door, what are you going to do with it? So we'll see. In terms of winning the Olympics, my boy Rashad looks good.
I'm seeing somebody made a prediction he's going to get double-digit sacks. I closed the app. I closed the app. I didn't get on for the rest of the day.
He had what? 6 in his rookie season, 5.5, something like that. If he can develop that, I'm fine as a rotational player. But in my honest opinion, I think Jalen Harrell might take over that opposite spot to Harold Landry this season by season's end. I like Jalen Harrell a lot. And I don't like Arden Key and Rashad Weaver that much. But if Weaver if he's still progressing and he can turn into something, awesome. But it's going to be a rotation there on that other side, in my opinion.
No doubt.
And Sweat's injury was precautionary, they say. So, he's fine.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that at all. And Sebastian Joseph Day, I think he's becoming that overlooked guy in that room. I think he's still going to see a lot of snaps, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was one of the better pass rushers out of the 3 that we have coming out this season, just because when he was next to Aaron Donald, that's what got him paid. So getting next to Jeffrey Simmons, being able to rotate in there with Sweat, interior pass rush, I think is going to be very, very good this season. And I think that's what CJ Stroud and Trevor Lawrence really struggle with the most. So pairing with the AFC South, I think that really works in our favor, even if we're not rushing efficiently off the edge.
One good thing, and this sort of goes back to our offensive line, is one good thing this year compared to last year is we don't face as good of edge rushers as we saw last year. We had a ridiculous stretch last year. We had Garrett, Watt, Bosa. It was like a 6-week stretch where we were facing perennial edge guys. We don't really, it's not as bad this year.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. I haven't taken a look at like tackle or edge matchups. I have been taking a look at some of the wide receiver matchups just because I was curious how this cornerback room is going to match up. And man, how many times did we find ourselves last season, the year before, going, okay, who's going to cover Tyreek Hill? Who's going to cover Stephon Diggs? And now this year it's like, bro, we're good. Like, how are they going to match up? Right. Yeah, we got that covered. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of positives on the defensive side this year. Obviously, a couple of holes that still need to be filled. Would still like to see a guy brought in at free safety, maybe to go along with Amani, who I'm still high on, by the way. Still love Amani Hooker. I know B-Will has his qualms, but I think he's a playmaker, and I think if he has talent on the opposite side of him and he can stay healthy, I think there's a lot of upside there. Would love a Marcus May, Justin Simmons. I think he has upside when he has a talented player across from him to pair with him at safety in the back end. When Kevin Byard left, things got a little shaky for Amani, I think, because he was kind of there were holes. I'll say it that way. It's kind of like the best, most polite way to say it. But I think there's a lot of opportunity. Amani Hooker in that Bengals game, he's the one thing I love about him. We don't have to go on a tangent about Amani, but the reason why I like him is because he plays big in big moments. And he's shown that in multiple games, in big playoff games. So I really like his upside. But I do think he needs some help back there. And I think I would be really happy with Marcus May or Justin Simmons if they were able to land one of those guys. And I think that would put a nice little bow on this defense. Cedric Gray likely going to be a starter, I would assume. And let's see if he can have the impact that we hope he can have. And so, yeah, a lot of upside with this defense. I don't think a question that I'll ask you guys is, do you think that this defense as is, or well, let's not say as is, because I think we can all agree they're signing a safety. They're signing some safety, right? Might not be Justin Simmons.
They said they have. They said that they are.
They said that they are. So let's just say, let's split the difference and say they signed Marcus May. Okay. So let's say they bring in Marcus May, and that's the last considerable addition that they make to the team. Okay. To the defense, at least. Are you confident that did this, in your guys' opinion, did this defense improve? Did it stay the same, or did it get worse from last year?
I think it most
100%
definitely improved. Mm-hmm. I think it improved. Just not the secondary alone is what improved the defense the most compared to last year. We're returning everyone on defense of note except Aziz, which is questionable of note, and Danico.
Yeah.
And Danico is the biggest miss, but the addition of Snead is a much bigger addition than a subtraction of Danico. So I mean, Snead alone is what propels this defense to where I'm quietly confident with them. You know what I mean? I've still got worries, of course. Just like, I mean, we're not the finished product, but I don't think that we're going to get 30 hung on us every game. So.
I think we have a better coach as well. To be honest, it's a better DC. Shane Bowen was a Mike Vrabel puppet first off, but I'm not super confident. I think he did improve after Jim Schwartz came in and kind of helped, give some direction, but I'm happier with this defense. I mean, even Amani Hooker said in his presser, he said that this defense is much more aggressive, which is kind of exciting because there were times where if I would have seen another corner play 15 yards off the line of scrimmage again, I would have pulled the hair that's not on my head off. I would have been pulling my beard hair out because you just can't, like, they choreographed, or they telegraphed everything that was happening defensively. It was rough to watch. It was like a middle school quarterback could dissect this defense, and that's a problem. So, and I don't think it was a player issue. It felt like a scheme issue. And there were times, I mean, don't get me wrong, like 2019, 2020, like there was when there was some good talent there, like I never felt that way necessarily. We had some really strong years at times under the Vrabel era, but on this back half, it was far less impressive from a scheme standpoint, in my opinion. Like, it was much easier to tell. And I think, who knows, maybe it was a talent issue. Maybe it was like, okay, well, we don't have man beaters, so we're literally going to get cooked off the line of scrimmage if we play press coverage in any way. But just not having that versatility really just made things very obvious, in my opinion. But that's just goes to show, like, I'm just really optimistic. I really like Denard Wilson. I like what he's going to bring, and I'm excited to kind of see what he draws up.
I think the only thing we had good last year defensively was the deception on the back half. I mean, that's what kept us in games, is keeping the quarterbacks half-ass confused, because we damn sure wasn't beating guys man-to-man or, guys just covering people. Deception was about the only thing we had.
Well, quarterbacks didn't struggle against us. They played. I mean, they threw.
That's not because of the lack of deception, though. That's because the talent sucked. You know?
I mean,
we got quarterbacks. We got Mahomes that says, it's one of the hardest defense to plan against because of so much deception. This is Mahomes saying this. That's about the only thing we could tip our hat on, was that we had a little bit of deception on the back half. Now, we couldn't get home with a pat. Well, we got home a little bit, but we didn't have guys that could cover. That's the issue. We can have the guys in spots, but if they ain't gonna cover, it don't matter where you put them. Hell, we could have had 13 guys out there, and it wouldn't have mattered.
I think it just looked very vanilla from the outside looking in, and it was just a bend. I want to say bend, don't break defense, but it's bend till you break, because they did break quite often. It just seemed like one step ahead of what Jeff Fisher was rolling out there by the end of his career. I think with Denard, we're going to see more generated pressures by the scheme. I think that's what the biggest part is going to be. We're not the wide nine out there might be a little bit gone, and I think it's just going to be lots of stunts and stuff from the inside, and we're going to see blitzes from these linebackers. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. And I think Roger McCreary is going to be seeing a lot of blitzes too. And then I'm still very high on Elijah Molden. I think he is a rotational starter. He's got his parts where he plays very well, but behind him, there is nobody. If you're rolling out a Mike Brown, you are in trouble. So bringing in one more guy, I think, is what's going to benefit this team the most. And there might be games where this team gives up a lot of yards and a lot of plays because of what they're going to be doing out there. If you're playing close to the line of scrimmage every play, you're going to get beat from time to time. So there are going to be games where I think it could get a little hairy at times, but I think what they're doing for the long term is going to be for the better. So I think ultimately this defense will be improved, and we went from defending the run being our biggest strength, which means absolutely dog shit in the NFL at this point in time, to having a great, great pass defense. So I think the analytics side and stuff would pair well with us. I think this team is going to be very improved on the defense.
No doubt.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm just happy that we're not tipping our cap on defending the run like we were before. We had people saying, "Oh, we got the best run defense in the league," and I'm thinking, "Well, where the hell has that got us? What has it done?"
Defense no longer wins championships. It just makes sure you don't lose them. So I think that kind of wraps up this entire OTA package. Let's go ahead. Let's hop into some AFC South talk. We're going to talk quarterbacks. Jonathan, you've been fighting a good fight, like we said. Let's go ahead and have you kick it off.
Man, it's been a good fight. That's on one side, maybe. So just to kind of give some context to everybody in the chat, essentially I opened up a conversation saying, the AFC South quarterbacks, for the first time, maybe ever, I think ever, it looks like all four teams legitimately have a young starting franchise quarterback. Like, 3 of these quarterbacks came out of the same draft, all look very promising. But the problem is that's not the conversation, unfortunately. What's happening is that Will Levis is getting written off in very nonchalant ways that don't really make much sense. So the question, if you will, that I posed was, why does Anthony Richardson get significantly more grace than what Will Levis does? And obviously for us, being, fans of the Titans, especially people who watch game and watch tape very carefully, if you watch every single throw that Will Levis took in 2023, then obviously there's much to grow on, right? Like if you asked me why Will Levis, why are you confident in him? Then I could answer the question like, well, there's a couple of things that he didn't do well. Like there was, he has like kind of a processing issue where he speeds through his progressions, or the opposite, where he doesn't even go through his progressions. He just stares down his first read and then throws them open or tries to. That almost threw several picks in just that right there. So he's got like kind of a progression reading issue. And then obviously like his footwork needs a little bit of work. He like throws from the hip and doesn't follow through much, which you've seen him work on that a lot in the offseason. And then, he gets a little gun crazy at times, right? Where he's throwing balls that he probably shouldn't have thrown, where he's just kind of, again, trying to throw his receiver open and forcing throws. So those are some of the negatives, but the positives is that this guy can throw every ball on the field. He's incredibly accurate. He does well under pressure. Will take a shot right in his face and deliver the ball with accuracy. He looked far more accurate in his NFL debut and his NFL, rookie campaign than he did all throughout college. So there's a drastic difference in player from college to professional experience. I can make that assumption based on 8 or 9 games or whatever it was. I think it was 9 games that he played in, right? For Anthony Richardson, I asked the same question, right? I posed, okay, what is it about Anthony Richardson that everybody's so high on? PFF or the Pro Football Network, I forget who it was, said, is he a top 5 quarterback next year? All this hype around him. And so anyways, Colts fans have chimed in, and a lot of them couldn't really give me a good answer. If I'm being completely honest, they were like, he's the second best quarterback in the division, or he's the best quarterback in the South. Why? The best answer that I got was that he showed a lot of promise. He has high rushing upside, and he has an elite mentality. That's like the best answer that I got out of dozens of people. And so the problem I have with that is like, you could say that those are just like arbitrary traits. Like those aren't like tied to anything specific. And as a matter of fact, one person tried to say, well, he showed up big and beat the Texans in week 2 and he played really well against the Rams. He beat a week 2 CJ Stroud. And by the way, he didn't beat them. He went 5 of 11 for 56 yards or 55 yards.
He left the game early too, right?
Garner Minshew beat the Texans in week 2. And then
Jonathan?
Garner Minshew, not Anthony Richardson. And then the other one was the Rams game, which they lost in overtime. And he looked pedestrian. Like he had a good rushing performance. He threw for like 200 yards. The point I'm trying to make is that Will Levis should be receiving the same grace that Anthony Richardson is receiving. And the conversation shouldn't be, well, 3 of these teams got their guy. We'll see if Will Levis can do it. It should be, this division is incredibly promising and looks to be very competitive, in the years to come. And I'm not trying to say that Will Levis is the bona fide guy, right? Like I'm not trying to say that he's going to do it, right? But I am trying to say that we've seen more in the past calendar year from Will Levis to know from a talent standpoint, from a developmental standpoint, that, he's going to be able to put it together because he has these traits. And all I'm asking is for just a pure football answer, and nobody can really give it to me. So it was just a little annoying because, maybe it's a Tennessee thing, whatever. I don't know. But regardless, some of these Colts fans, most fans in general, are delusional, and I get it. Sometimes you just have blinders on for your team. I understand. And you can be excited. If I was a Colts fan, I'd be excited about AR. I'm just not. I just don't understand the blind hype. That's all.
I try not to get, be blinded with the team stuff. And of course I'm a Titans fan, but I remain objective. Quarterback is one of the hardest positions to evaluate for me. But when I look at a quarterback and I'm trying to evaluate him versus other guys, one thing that I try and look at is how much do they change the game for better or worse? And then how is their temperament affect them during the game? So a guy like AR can be a game changer, and I think that's where the excitement comes from. The same thing with Will Levis. The tools they have will allow them to just completely break games if it's their day, and that leads to a lot of optimism. The second thing is their temperament in game, and this can be affected by the surrounding pieces, the coaching. A lot of times it's the coaching, and that affects how much they can change the game for better or worse. Because if their temperament is crazy, then we can get way off the rails and we'll change the game in a bad way, as we saw with, Levis in a couple games last year. But Richardson has had, and it's questionable right now, that he has a lot more around him to work with. The offensive line was a lot better than ours last year. Steichen, one of the best play callers in the league last year.
Great.
Titans fans can say what they want. The guy came down here in Nashville and called a hell of a game and beat the shit out of us. So Steichen, and I'm just being objective. He's got a better play caller, a better offensive line. He has a lot more. The expectation for him should be higher than it is for Will Levis, in my opinion, just because what he has around him, especially with Steichen. And it's Steichen. I'm not sure exactly what the hell his name is. Steichen. And they've added all, really good receivers too. So the expectation should be higher for AR. This conversation should be Levis and Trevor Lawrence, not AR, in my opinion. Lawrence is the one that needs to be on the damn hot seat.
Yep.
He's the guy. And all this is for the second and fourth, or the third and fourth quarterback in this division. We all know who the best quarterback in the division is. So, it's for now. This conversation should be that guy's going to be the best quarterback in this division for a long time. I'm just being honest.
There's a good chance.
Who's going to be better than him?
I'm not we don't know.
Are we going to get Mahomes in here?
No.
Who's going to be better than CJ Stroud?
We don't know.
I know it ain't going to be nobody. That guy is different, man. And
he is. He is.
So my thing is, what's the difference with what CJ Stroud's doing right now versus if he had a two-tone blue on? What would we be saying? We'd be saying that nobody's ever going to be better than him. That's my problem.
He could be taking 2.93 seconds to throw the ball because he'd be on his back.
Well,
flat.
I'm just saying that's the problem, though. That's the thing. We got to sometimes, if we're having a real discussion, and if we're not having a real discussion, then we know we're not having a real discussion. But if we're having a real discussion, a real honest discussion about quarterback play, nobody in this division is going to be better than CJ Stroud. Let's be honest. I'm saying that as a Titans fan. Honestly, nobody will be.
I think my only point is that we don't know, and I think it's fair to say that CJ. He's far and away the better quarterback today. There's no doubt. And I think that as long as they don't mess things up in Houston, he should project to be a top 5 quarterback in the league, right?
Yes.
No doubt. But all I'm saying is that there are a lot of unchecked boxes, not just for the Titans and Will Levis, but also for Anthony Richardson, right? Like obviously Trevor he's got to take that next step, because at this point, if he doesn't, then he's just going to be a middle of the pack quarterback. That's just going to be his tag. But that's my point. That my point of this entire discussion is not that I'm trying to say that Will Levis is the best quarterback in the division or that he's going to be the best quarterback in the division. It's that I'm trying to say that this division is set up in a way that we've never seen in terms of quarterback play, just based on my evaluation, in my opinion. I think that all 4 teams have a promising franchise quarterback, even Trevor Lawrence, that should lead their team into being competitive every single year, competing for the division, competing for the playoffs every single year. So, but the problem is that Tennessee and Will Levis don't get that same grace. And the question I asked was, why? Why do they not get the same grace? Because if you're evaluating the talent of Will Levis based off of what he's shown you, then I can tell you why I think he's going to project to be one of the best quarterbacks, maybe top 2 at the very least in the division, right? I can tell you why based on the valuation. You cannot evaluate Anthony Richardson and then tell me the same thing based off of what he's done.
Who's more of a game changer?
He hasn't shown us anything.
What has Levis shown us?
He's shown us that he can progress. He is a better looking passer. He has elite arm talent, and then his entire situation changed. Talent was added on the offensive line and in the skill position. His coaching staff is the scheme has changed to favor a pass heavy offense. So there's enough that has changed that you could go, okay, this guy is projecting in a way that makes sense. I'm not saying that Anthony Richardson is not talented. Of course he is. I'm not even saying that he's not going to be a game changer. He can be. I'm just saying keep the same energy for these other quarterbacks. And I'm not going to lie, B-Will, I could make an argument for Trevor Lawrence as well. I could.
Well,
I don't know if it's going to happen, but
the thing with Levis that everybody's worried about is his processing and temperament, and that's the bulk lion's share of what a quarterback does.
Temperament, I'm not worried about temperament. That's something that's a mentality switch that you can flip. Like I'm not.
You can't flip temperament, man. Brett Favre struggled with that his whole career. Quarterbacks, it's temperamental.
Brett Favre was one of the greatest quarterbacks in the game.
It worked for him. It didn't work for a guy like some of the other guys.
Do we know
a lot of the
Levis
other guys? Yet? What has he showed us last year to show that it can work? That's been a main talking point all off seasons. Levis's temperament. Callie's talked about it throughout.
He had the swag to go out there and beat Miami in a historic fashion,
and that'll also get him on the injury table too. It's been a topic. I'm not the only one saying his temperament. Callie been saying it all off season as well. It's a problem. He knows it's a problem. He's admitted him himself.
I don't think it's a but see, that's my point. Like, so sometimes it's all about like awareness, right? Like if you're aware, like, okay, in certain situations, you can't act the way he did when they had that comeback touchdown against Miami, right? Like you can't go out there and just be crazy. Like you have to be mellow. You have to be in your own head and be able to control. Because I get it. Like temperament is important for a quarterback. You have to be able to control those levels. But having the level where you can kind of break through the top and really have the energy to will your team to a victory, that's something Ryan Tannehill didn't have. That's something Marcus Mariota didn't have. That's something that most quarterbacks don't have. So to your point, just as much of a detriment as that can be, it can also be that it factor for a quarterback. And we've seen it from Patrick Mahomes also. I'm him, arguing with Crosby across the field. You know what I'm saying? Like literally just being bigger than the moment and willing his team to a victory. Like half the time, Patrick Mahomes isn't throwing for victories. He's literally just like backyard football, scrambling, converting a 3rd and 19, and then them going and winning that drive because he's just being bigger than the moment.
Has to. But he had to. His temperament is what got him in trouble. What was it, last year? Or no, the last year they had Bieniemy when they were playing high shell, just cloud defenses for him, and he was trying to throw it over the top of the cloud. They started rough. That's temperament. He had to check his temperament and say, I'm going to take what the defense is giving me. I'm not going to try and force and make a $1 million Madden throw every single time. That's my problem with Levis, and that's what he said. That's what Callie said. These quarterbacks, that's a part of the maturation process. So that's my thing. He has to mature in that aspect. That's one of the most important faults of his that I see. And he's got a process on time. But it's also because he hasn't had the foundation around him to be able to feel like he can have a lower temperament and still be able to make first downs and not feel like he has to win every down, every play for us to even have a chance. So that's going in his favor.
Look at his last year in Kentucky. If he didn't have that mentality, they'd be screwed. He had to will every game he possibly could. He had to literally be that guy. So I completely agree with you. It's a problem, but it's not a problem in the fact that it's like, oh, he's going to be screwed forever, right? It's a problem in that he's got to mature and learn, like, okay, like when the defense, and that's why I think Brian Callahan is a perfect coach for him, and the scheme is perfect for him because it's about efficiency, it's about timing, it's about rhythm, it's about getting into it. He doesn't have to go, okay, Derrick Henry just ran 2 times for 2 yards. It's 3rd and 6, and now we're definitely throwing the ball. Okay, let's see. I got 3 out wide. It's like you're playing on hard mode. And so he couldn't possibly develop in the ways that he needed to in that offense and scheme. And so that's where my optimism comes from. And I can explain it in that way versus Colts fans and kind of the AR conversation is, well, he looked really good. And it's like, okay, well, if he stayed and he projected this same way, like is throwing, 24 touchdowns, rushing for 7 or 8 touchdowns, throwing 9 or 10 picks, is that good? Like, it's good. It's like starting quarterback, but is it top 5? There's just a level of delusion there that I think that I'm struggling to like connect here. And that's kind of my point.
Who do you think has more talent? Who is the most, well, I'll just say this. Who's the least talented quarterback in this division? That's my question.
Trevor Lawrence.
Because
it's
I don't know about that.
It's a tough conversation because like, what do you mean?
Least talented.
What do you mean by talent? Are you talking about just like raw physical traits?
I'll say talent with raw physical traits accompanied with quarterback play. Like who is the least talented guy?
I'd still think it's Trevor Lawrence.
I don't think AR's in the bottom 2, and I don't think Stroud's in the bottom 2. That's what I'm getting
at. Coming out. I mean, he's the most physically gifted quarterback that we've ever seen come out. If we're just talking relative athletic score,
right? That's where the optimism's from.
Yeah, I mean,
the point I'm making.
Dude just turned 22 as well. Will Levis is the oldest quarterback in this division. We're just outside looking in. Obviously, he needs to improve on the decision making and all this good stuff. But if we're just looking at this division, I think Will Levis offers the best leadership out of all 4. I think he has the biggest aura, big time throw ability. I mean, he led the NFL this past season, and we're talking. I saw a Colts post earlier this week that said the deep ball is back. Anthony Richardson averaged 8 yards per throw, which is the highest since 2018 or something like that. Will Levis was 3rd in the NFL in that same metric in his rookie season with 11.1, 3 yards over what Anthony Richardson was putting out there, which they just copy and pasted what that offense had last season, where the Titans did improve and bring in people around Will Levis. So I'm not saying that Anthony Richardson is better or Will Levis is better, et cetera, et cetera. But when I'm just outside looking in, I do see that discourse. And what really put it on my map was NFL.com put it out. One of the reporters, Nick Shook, we're talking MVP rankings. CJ Stroud sitting there 4. That makes sense to me. Anthony Richardson at 7 over Josh Allen. That shit is outrageous to me. That makes no sense, even with all that physical makeup that he has. The dude takes time to throw the ball. He's not accurate. We're just talking accuracy. Will Levis is more accurate than Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson hasn't played. He had 1 starting year at Florida, and that's it. He started, 4 games, 6 games last season for the Colts. The dude just hasn't had the time to develop, and that might be his biggest hurt to what we're seeing thus far, but also gives him the optimism to improve as well. He just needs to see the reps. It really reminds me of, what year was it? Was it 2012 where Andrew Luck was drafted?
Yep.
You can see CJ Stroud is Andrew Luck. Maybe Anthony Richardson is RG3. He's going to burn really bright at times, but he's going to fall off. And Will Levis might be Russell Wilson, who was drafted in the 3rd round, drafted a little bit later, had a better career, had actually entered those MVP candidacy, and maybe Bryce Young can be somebody like Kirk Cousins or somebody else that came out of that draft. But I think this division is a good part, and I could really see any of them taking that next step this season and entering that top 10 conversation, potentially top 5. I think everybody would agree CJ Stroud is at the top of that, probably followed by Trevor Lawrence AR, and probably Will Levis at 4. But at the come season's end, I would be shocked if all 4 are interchangeable, or if somebody takes that next step and jumps a CJ Stroud or Trevor Lawrence, et cetera.
Real quick, if we're going to redraft that quarterback class, if we were picking up 1 or 2 overall, who are y'all taking at 1? I'm taking Stroud at 1. Who are y'all taking at 1?
Oh, yeah, Stroud.
It's not even a question.
Okay, now who are we taking at 2?
That one's tough.
I'm taking Young.
I am,
and this is just for the sake of conversation.
Are we?
You've been
saying
quiet this whole time, Jake, about Richardson, and you just say you're taking him at 2?
I had Richardson as my second quarterback coming out last
Jonathan.
season.
Yeah, are we taking? Hold on, important context. Are we taking them in that moment from what we knew that day, or
Now.
are we taking them now? Okay.
Now,
I think we're taking him now with the optimism going forward.
I'm taking Levis 2 if CJ isn't there.
I'm taking Levis 3 with Young as 4.
And you want to know why? I'll tell you why. I promise I'm not an Anthony Richardson. I'm not just being a hater. I promise this is all ingrained.
I don't think
in
you are.
real,
I just think that hat is covering your eyes.
No, it's not, bro. I promise. And look. Here's the reason why. For the past decade, every time there's been a run first or a run savvy quarterback, there's been highs and lows, right? But the ceiling has been playing in the Super Bowl, and that was with Cam Newton, right? He was one of the greatest to do it, and he had a lot of success. But what did it do? It shortened his career, and it also made that offense, when you played a defense that knows how to play the run and does a good job in the secondary and can man cover, then that's the worst nightmare. Like it's the same thing's been happening with Lamar. It's like, yes, his ceiling is really good, but it's never been able to go over the top. The quarterbacks that win in this league are throwing it all over the yard. Those are the ones
singular.
So my point is, and not just that, it's the injury concerns. Has played less than 20 games in his entire collegiate and NFL career. He does not have the reps. He shines in those moments, but it's not bright enough for me to be like, yeah, I'm going to build a future off of this guy. If I'm building a team, I want a quarterback that can throw it around the yard and has some, ability to kind of move. That's why CJ Stroud is perfect, because he has it's the same thing. It's like CJ Stroud, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, all these guys kind of have this pass first mentality, but I can tuck it and get you a first down. That's all I want. I don't want my quarterback running the ball 15, 16 times a game. I do not. I want you to escape the pocket when it's relevant, take what the defense gives you, and then move the chains. That's all I need. So that's my logic behind me going with Will Levis over Anthony Richardson. I've seen more progress and development from college, Kentucky, Will Levis, to Tennessee Titans rookie mini camp and OTAs and training camp Will Levis, to Falcons debut Will Levis, and even through the bad games that he had his rookie season. I've seen him develop with my eyes. I've seen the difference. I have not seen that with Anthony Richardson. That's all I'm saying. Who knows? He might come out and mob, and then I'll be foot in my mouth in week 6 or something. You know what I'm saying? There's a good chance of that. But today, the conversations we're having today, 7th in MVP, top 5. Is he a top 5 quarterback?
I'm not corroborating that shit.
I just don't understand it. I don't. But that's my logic.
Hey, I'm not corroborating the MVP stuff. I'm just saying that he's. I can understand why the outside of the AFC South, and even within the AFC South, is higher on AR than they are Levis. That's all I'm saying. And with going back to the draft thing, Bryce Young, if Callahan could pick a quarterback out of that class, I think it's gonna be Stroud and then Young for his offense. I mean, Bryce,
I would agree.
everything that's
more similar to Joe Burrow.
And that's why I say Bryce Young over Will Levis and what we'd have. And because Bryce Young, with a competent offensive line around him in that system, he's built for that. He's perfect for that. So that was my logic behind it. But
I did like Young. I did like Young coming out of the draft. The height didn't scare me necessarily, and I think we should see a sophomore bump from Bryce Young. He looks like he has more talent around him. He's going to be more.
He'll
prepared.
be much better this year.
Yeah,
Bryce Young will be.
I agree.
And Canales can call a game.
Yep.
I mean, Dave Canales is he's a good play caller. So yep. So
yep.
I'm high on him.
Yep, they overperformed offensively last year. I think Tampa Bay did, so I like him too.
He got Baker paid.
Yeah, he did. I think
Boomer Sooner.
Yes, exactly. I think the biggest thing is when we look at these quarterbacks in the division, the Titans have put the most around the player. And Will Levis he had to play hero ball last season. He had to.
He did.
Third most pressure, highest pressure rate out of the NFL behind Daniel Jones and Justin Fields. He didn't have the choice. So to see him be able to be allowed to go through progressions, I think is the biggest thing. So I think It's so hard. I think it's very close with him and AR. So I do get where Jonathan's coming from there. This disconnect with the national media of having one so much higher than the other when they're very similar in the same boat, in my opinion. It'll be very interesting to look at.
We have not seen Anthony Richardson throw a ball where he has a defender literally in his face. He's getting knocked in his face, and he stays in the pocket and delivers like a 15-yard out, like on a rope, against a very good defense. Like those throws happened regularly throughout his rookie season. That is a drastic different Levis than we saw in college. I don't
even think it's that. Looking at Will Levis's senior year, I think that's where, especially Vols fans, that's why they were so low on Levis, because that's what they were looking at. Was he didn't perform. He still had some of those things. He had to play hero ball. He lost all of the talent around him. He's playing through turf toe. He's throwing through a hurt throwing shoulder. He played through a dislocated finger. All of these things amount to what we saw that last season. But you go that year before that, he was a top 5 pick in the NFL, even before that as a junior, when he had a Wan'Dale Robinson out there. He had the running back for that Buffalo now. He had NFL talent around him, which is what got his name out there after he transferred from Penn State. I think it's always been there, but having that last season is why everybody is so low on him now, even coming off what we saw last season in the NFL. Yeah. Good point. All right. Well, I think that kind of wraps up the AFC South talk. We're going to end our draft, end our show with our draft like we always do. Today we are doing best barbecue foods. We're going to do a main dish or a meat. We're going to do a beverage, and we're going to do 2 sides. Looking at it, we got B-Will with the first pick, Jonathan with the second, me with on the turn. We're going to go 4 picks each. So where are we going with the 101 B-Will?
We've got to go with beef brisket. Best thing smoking at a barbecue. You know, if you got somebody's got a brisket and they put in the group chat, hey, I got a brisket, it'll be done at 7:00. Everybody will be there at 6:00. You know, everybody's gonna be ready for that brisket, and it's so versatile with brisket, man. You can make tacos out of it. You can just slice them and eat them there. I sound like a fat ass. You can do absolutely anything with brisket. So it's the GOAT barbecue main course, in my opinion. You can't go wrong with it.
Yeah, you're right. Brisket was the 101, no matter which way you slice it. Didn't even
like
mean to do a food pun, but it fit. So do I have to go with a protein, or can I go with a side for my pick?
You can go whatever you want, as long as we come with the 1, and the 2.
Gotcha.
There might be some gamemanship into this.
Let's see. I base all of my barbecue related opinions off of Terry Black's. In Texas, Terry Black's is the supreme overlord of barbecue, in my opinion. So if I'm basing my barometer off of that, then I think there's a good chance, maybe I'll go with, I've had some pretty insane fried chicken at barbecue places, which is pretty elite. Like Pecan Lodge in Dallas is just second to none. They're fried chicken, but fried chicken isn't exactly barbecue, right? So maybe I'll try to stick with a barbecue staple, and I'll go with nope, that doesn't have to be the 102. Let me go with mac and cheese, macaroni and cheese. It's a staple. You have to have it when you're talking barbecue, when you're talking really anything. It's in my opinion, the most versatile side of all time. It can go with literally everything. And when you do it right, boy, is it insane. So I'm going to go with mac and cheese. I feel like that's a better pick at the 102.
What makes mac and cheese so great?
The cheese, the different cheeses. Yeah,
cheese.
The different melted cheeses.
Cheese, pasta. You can't go wrong with either.
The combination of cheese.
Combination.
Smoking, like the way you can cook the cheese adds flavor. Yeah. So smoked mac and cheese, boy. Whew.
Let's just have a whole episode on mac and cheese. How about that? We'll just break that down.
An hour about it.
Talk very easily. Homemade. You got the crust on top.
Y'all let us know if y'all want a mac and cheese show.
Yeah. It's just that graphic.
It's the off season. This is the time to do it.
It's just the graphic, and it's got the Titans logo and just a bowl of mac and cheese.
What is the temperament of the smoked mac and cheese?
The craft. I think that goes. Those are my first 2 picks. My number 1 meat, my number 1 side. So I'd be remiss if I didn't start off with my number 1 beverage to get that out of the way. We're just going beer. We're going beer. Yep. You got it staple. I mean, there's a couple other ones, but if I'm comparing what is on the board left at those other two positions, I got to go beer, get it out of the way. And then I think I'm going side next. And mac and cheese is clear best there. But, man, there's a clear drop-off. But I'm going baked beans, barbecue baked beans. I think that's going to be my staple there. So,
see, I would have traded it. I would have traded up to 102 for my pick I got right here. And I'll be on. Well, is it me?
It's Jonathan.
Oh, it's me next.
You're
it's Jonathan. Oh, shit. I'm waiting to trade up.
So what were you going to draft so Jonathan can take it?
No, it's just going to keep my
cards close. Communicate a trade.
No, we're just going to let the board do the talking and picking, like Carthan said.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to stay with my second side, right? Like we had two sides. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, two sides.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to go ahead and take my second side, just like taking, double running back at the top of a redraft. I'm going to go with potato salad. Potato salad is an elite side. And not only that, but when it's done right, my God. And there's so many different ways to do it. I've had so
That's
many.
what I was about to ask. You going mustard? You going mayonnaise based? You going?
Honestly, I think I prefer mayo based, but I've had some banging mustard based ones. I thought that's the thing. Like I've had it made so many different times, and I've enjoyed it almost as much every time. Like when it comes to homemade, like you can't really go wrong. And you can't say that about a lot of dishes. So you want to talk about versatility? Potato salad's got it. So I got my sides: mac and cheese, potato salad.
We're Titans fans. We got to go mayo based.
Of course.
So yeah, I'm just so surprised that this fell to me at this pick. I was going to trade up for it, but I have to go probably. And this is my favorite side, and to me, it's better than mac and cheese when done right. You throw a smoked turkey neck in there, you got it sit in the roux, collard greens, a whole pot of them.
Yep.
Wow.
I can't believe y'all let that drop to me.
It would have been one of my next two picks.
It is a classic, I will say.
And it's any weather. You can do it in the winter. You can eat it in the summer.
You can also mess them up really easily, though, too. That's the thing.
Throw some bacon.
Well, if you know how to cook them, you know how to cook them. So as long as you know how to cook them, they're just fine. You can even mix the grains too. You can have turnips and collards. You can have mustards and collards. You can have mustards and turnips. It's all just greens in general.
Feel healthier just having some greens on my plate too.
If you have mine and Jake's complexion, then it's pretty easy to mess up. Is all I'll say. Okay,
I wasn't gonna say that.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Context is important here.
I wasn't gonna say that.
You got to get invited to the barbecue.
It might be why it fell to you.
That's exactly why it fell to me. Shit, it's a good fit.
Taking it in the fourth round. If we're being
honest. It's a good fit, man. It fits my scheme.
It's a scheme fit.
It's a scheme fit. Is it turn back around for me? I got another side I got to pick.
You're going back to back. Yeah, you got a side and a beverage.
The beverage is going to be sweet tea. I'm surprised y'all let that fall to me, too.
Oh, that's a good one. God. That's a good one.
So,
There's
sweet tea. So I got
more on my board. I had 3, and it's
we can just stop the draft now. We can just stop the draft now.
Brisket, collard green, and sweet tea. Y'all let me have it. I'll take it. I just let the board do the talking. We're just going to let the board do the talking, and the board is going to drive us. Isn't that what Carthan said?
Yep.
That's true.
He said the board. We're going to let the board drive us.
Roll the dice, play the board. You roll the dice.
Roll the dice, play the board, baby.
All right. So at this point, I think I have to go with a protein. Coleslaw sitting in the green room.
And Stoney's not a mac and cheese man, which is just bewildering to me. Got him leaking in the backyard on a plate.
Go sit in the house for a little bit.
Right. Get cooled off, bro, and eat that mac and cheese. Stop boo.
You got to take a nap after the barbecue. That's like number one rule.
Facts. That's I would take nap in my draft if there was a category for it. Okay, so I'm gonna go protein here, but the protein situation is really tough with brisket off the board because if you want to go traditional barbecue, obviously there's a couple of ways you could go. Like I said, my barometer for barbecue is just skewed. I'm not thinking of like back home barbecue in the backyard with your family type of vibe. I'm thinking like
hot dogs.
That's the thing. Like you can either go
RIBS ribs.
Yeah, I think that's the only option at this point. That's my only option. I'm gonna go ribs, but I'm not just gonna go beef ribs. I'm going to go very specifically pork ribs because there is a difference.
Baby back.
Big difference.
There's a difference. So,
But beef ribs, when done right, man,
those are
I
fire.
think they're
They are
superior.
good.
That's what I grew up on.
Terry Black's beef ribs are pretty insane. So, anyways,
I mean, it's damn near like brisket in a way if you can get it right. You know, if that bone comes out of there, you're eating a brisket. You know what I mean?
If you live in Texas, if you live in the Dallas area, in the Austin area, you know about Terry Black's, and people are pounding the table. They're like, yes, you guys have to try it if you get a chance because it's incredible. It's so good.
Let's plan a tailgate for one of the preseason games or one of the early games, man. We might have
Let's do
it. Barbecue catered.
Titans community potluck.
Yeah, we might do that.
Sick. That'd be sick.
We might do that.
I grew up working in barbecue restaurants. I worked at several, from Smoking Sisters, Iron Pig to Runt's Barbecue, and Oklahoma barbecue very similar to Texas. So there are some couple things, and I'm just going to give a shout out to country style ribs, burnt ends, the honorable mentions out there, and even boudin. If you guys have had smoked boudin, it's absolutely delicious. It's amazing. But mutton, awesome. My next after those two that you guys take, which would have been my top two, is pulled pork. Pulled pork, when done right, is absolutely amazing.
For sure.
Right behind those other two, in my opinion.
If you do it right, you don't even need the sauce, baby.
Exactly. So I'm going pulled pork with my third pick, and then wrapping it up with another side and potato salad. You brought it up, absolutely delicious. But if I'm going potatoes, I'm going with some loaded baked potato. Oh, I'm sorry, scalloped potatoes. Scalloped potatoes, absolutely
interesting.
Delicious.
I love scalloped potatoes.
Potatoes au gratin. I mean, it's good stuff. But it's one of those things. Potato salad you can't mess up. Scalloped potatoes you can absolutely ruin. But when it's done right, it is done amazing. So I'm going scalloped potatoes to wrap it up. And then Jonathan, you got your beverage.
Man, I'm just gonna go. Since sweet tea is off the board, and that's clearly the best pick. Not because I do like sweet tea, but it's just in this context, it's the perfect pick. I think I'm just gonna go, man. Nothing, you can't go wrong with the ice cold Coca-Cola. Just like a regular Coca-Cola. It's
no Kool-Aid, Jonathan.
It's a classic.
Lemonade.
I did
lemonade Kool-Aid.
I did rock with Kool-Aid growing up, but I've been far removed that I've been able to move up in life, and I've been able to set the Kool-Aid packets off to the side. So,
I'm still grabbing a Capri Sun out of that cooler. At 28 years old, I don't give a shit. I'm grabbing that Capri Sun.
Struggling,
and I'm putting one in my pocket.
Well,
I'm putting one in my pocket.
I have a toddler, so I have an excuse to grab those. We still be slurping those down. Yeah, you're right. That would have been a good one. Good choice. But I'm gonna go with Coke.
Got to let the board do the picking, Jonathan.
That's fair.
All right, well, that wraps it up. And then B-Will, you got a side left.
Hold on, I thought I had my sides. What did I pick? I had collard greens.
You got collard and tea as your last one.
Oh shit. A side. There's
a side available right now that's an all-timer out there.
There is one. There's one that's I wouldn't mind.
I'm trying to think because I'm not a side person. That's the thing. I'm straight main course with it. Let me make a call. To Jonathan. Can I call a friend? What's that side?
That side is mashed potatoes, bro.
Yeah, mashed potato. Yeah, we can go with mashed potatoes. That'll pair well with the collard greens.
It's a classic. Potato wedges. You could just go with potatoes in general, dog. Like
potato skins.
That's an option. Potatoes wedges, but
we'll go mashed potatoes. So I can put the collard greens with the mashed potatoes. Yeah, you're right. Oh no. Hold on. Corn on the cob.
Okay, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah, give me corn on the cob. I don't know what. It's early.
Cornbread. You go coleslaw. You go macaroni salad. Those have been good too.
Yep.
Yeah, corn on the cob.
Coleslaw just sitting in the green room.
Yep. Just like Stoney
My
said.
neighbors are gonna wake up, and I'm gonna go out to my back porch, and the smoker is gonna wake up the neighborhood, not the rooster. this today. I'm going out there and I'm firing the grill up. I don't know what I'm gonna throw on there. I'm just gonna do it. I might just smell the grill. I don't know. I might just rub an onion on the grates. I don't know.
Just gonna run to Walmart and get some brisket really quick and just have brisket for breakfast.
Fuck it.
No, I think, man, I don't think there's a loser in this draft, but we'll put it out in social.
I think there's a clear winner.
I think there's probably a clear winner too. We'll see how it plays out. But I mean, brisket, collard greens, sweet tea, and mashed potatoes. I mean, those are goated. Jonathan's got pork ribs, Coke, potato salad, mac and cheese. I got pulled pork.
That's a good one.
Pulled pork, scalloped potatoes, baked beans, and beer. I mean, the beer is putting it in my favor, in my opinion. You got to have
Yeah, that's a big.
I think the clear hole on your team is the scalloped potatoes, though, at a barbecue.
I don't like the pick. We reached there, and the board. We played too many gambles, and it just didn't come back to us. But we're invested in this team, and
a lot higher than consensus, Jake.
Yes, yeah. PFF is not having us high on their redrafts, but I think ultimately we're going to come in and we're going to compete. But
that's right.
That wraps it up today, guys. If you guys are checking us out the first time, make sure you head over to YouTube, like, comment, subscribing. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcast. You're on Twitter. Make sure you retweet, like, drop all those comments down there. We'll be reposting this later this week as well. We appreciate all of the support, and we're getting ready. OTAs are wrapping up, and we're getting ready for mandatory minicamp here in just a couple weeks. So it's getting exciting. Football is back, boys, and we'll check you guys out next week. Peace.
See y'all.